Hey friends, today we are going to work on a watercolor of a waterfall. So you can see I've kind of sketched out right here kind of how our lines are going to go. So I'll refer back to this from time to time, but for now let's just go to our paper. So you're going to tape the edges of your paper down if you've got some tape, and I like to go like halfway on the paper, halfway on my work surface. So what this does is it keeps the edges of our paper nice most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't, but it keeps the edges of our paper nice. And that way we have this awesome moment at the end when we can pull this off and we have a little border around our piece of art. So today my tape has, let's see, ponies and rainbows. Woo. It's Pony Rainbow Day, friends. All right. So as we paint through today, there's going to be a lot of steps. So you're just going to have to trust the process. It's one of those types of things. All right. The first thing we'll use is blue. And I want you to go ahead and mix some of your just regular dark blue over here and get it very, very, very light. So I'm going to get it super duper light. I don't want a lot of pigment in here at all. I want mostly water, but I'm going to give myself just enough so that I can get my waterfall going. But I want it to be very, very translucent. So use a lot of water. So once you've got that mixed over there, we can start kind of, and we're going to do a little bit of a watercolor sketching technique today, I guess we can call it. So I know that I'm going to have some water here that just goes straight across. So I'm just going to make some water there. And then I'm going to have some water here that comes straight down. So I don't want these touching. I just want them all sort of straight. And then we're going to have another little section of waterfall up here, kind of like this. So you can see where our water is coming from and where it's going. And we even can have some water coming down here. And maybe a little across at the very bottom. This really could go all the way down. So that's kind of what the shape of our waterfall is going to look like. Now, what I want you to do is get some water. We're going to add the tiniest bit of black, just a little bitty bit. A little bit of black to that blue. We don't want to add a lot because we don't want it to take over and be super dark black. But I'm just going to make it a little darker. Alright. And I don't want to load my brush up with a lot of paint. Just a little bit. And I want to just kind of come down. See when we drag that brush, how we get that, where we really see the like how the texture in the paper is, that is what I'm going for here. So I'm going to kind of try and do that wherever I have water. What's important is that we leave some of the white showing through. We don't want to go over that white, but we want to have this kind of raggedy looking stroke, which we call a dry brush. So we want to do a little bit of that everywhere that we have water. And since this is not waterfall water, this is like the pool at the bottom of the waterfall, we're going to go horizontally instead of vertically. So you just want some nice horizontal lines going across here. And they don't, some of them can have some white in the lines, and that's great. That's what we want. Be sure that you leave some nice white reflecty there. So this at the end is going to look like light reflecting. So these are just very light little tiny strokes with the tip of your brush where you're barely even hitting the surface of the paper. And so I'm going to come down and I'm going to make it a little darker just in the dark bottom triangle. Like almost if there's a triangle right here, we're going to make it a little darker there. And then same thing here. We'll have a little bit of darkness here and maybe some here. But we are just kind of putting some water in here. And then we will go and we will add even a tiny bit more black. And we want it to still be blue. We want it to sort of be like navy. So I think that's pretty good. That looks kind of navy to me. But I don't want a whole lot of paint. So we're going to go back in kind of to our corners. And just add a little bit of shade. We'll have a little bit of maybe some shade up in this corner. And then maybe some shade through here. And down through here. So just kind of put it here, there, wherever you feel like it might need to be, but leave a lot of light coming through. Now here at the bottom, we might kind of have a pool, so we can do a little bit darker over here. So just take it and keep doing kind of these sideways motions. But leave through the middle, leave it nice and bright in there. That's what we want. And I'm gonna make this even a darker black. I don't want it super dark, so maybe a little more blue. Let's make like a blackish bluish mix up here. But I want something for my very dark water. So I'm just gonna take a little tiny bit of it. And I'm just going to add kind of here where it's wet. Add a little bit of darker water there. And then maybe also down here at the bottom. And we can always come back and add more dark at the end. So if you're a little shy about adding that dark, don't worry about it. I'm just going to put a tiny bit over in this corner and then here too, where we had put a little bit more of the dark. All right. Now for our next step, we're going to add in kind of maybe some tree and sky colors. So I think my sky is going to be maybe just normal blue, but I'm still going to water it down because I don't need a lot of blue. So my sky is kind of be back here. And I'm just going to water it down and make it all absolutely covered. And my sky is sort of going to come down to where the top of this waterfall is. And if you want to add color, like some sunset color or anything to your sky, this is the place and the time to do it. And also over the top of the waterfall, let's come down and kind of make it a little bit raggedy, because the top of the waterfall maybe isn't straight. Then that horizon line will be. All right. I may add in a tiny bit of purple because I do like my purples. So I'm just gonna come in at the top, purple it up a little bit. All right. And you know, we don't even really have to blend this. It's just gonna look nice the way it is. All right. Now we're gonna come in and we're gonna put like some tree colors in these edges here. So let's start like with maybe some yellows. We'll put down yellow first and then we'll come in with some oranges. Ooh, I still have some blue in my brush. All right, so I'm just gonna paint this yellow. all through here. And I'm trying to not touch where I have painted it with blue. So try and keep that off. So I want a very light wash of yellow. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Make like just a light wash of yellow. Just super light, nothing dark. Just get some color over there. This is going to be our background color. So just get some color over there for the background, and don't worry too much about it being perfect. It's kind of see-through. See how it's like really very see-through? All right. So now let's fan this a little bit. Let's dry it just a tiny bit. And I'm trying to dry this yellow part. I'm not worrying about my sky really right now. I want the yellow part to be dry. Doesn't have to be perfectly dry. All right. So I just have dried it a little. And I'm going to come in with, let's see, maybe some orange. I'm going to come in with some orange and kind of add a little dimension here. Like maybe there's a tree right here that's orange. So I'm going to be like pretty loose with this and this is very abstract-y. This isn't anything that's like perfect right now. I just went over the blue a little bit. That's all right. It's just going to give it a little dimension. And maybe my tree is in front of the waterfall a little bit here. But I'm going to wiggle the tip of my brush around so it kind of disturbs that blue that's under there. And it just mixes it right in. So we're just creating the idea over here of a tree with some little tapping motions. And then maybe let's do the same thing over on the other side, but like a little higher up. So we want this to be super watery and super translucent, right? So we get that really pretty. And I'm doing the same thing I did over there. Like I'm just gonna mess up the edge of that blue a little bit so it's like this tree is in front of it. So we're just creating a little tiny bit of depth. And if this doesn't look like anything to you at this point, don't worry about it. We are slowly coming in and being pretty abstract with all of this, so. All right. So then we'll come in here down below and I'm gonna put in like some greens. So let's take some green. And I'm gonna take this green and put it over here. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of this bluey black color to it, because that looks like, yeah, that'll make us like a foresty green. And I'm going to add some water. So that gives us a nice kind of a foresty green look. And we'll come down here with that, like we've got some vegetation, like some little sort of tree shapes. And they can go out over this water. You just want to get in there and like rub your brush around so that you are getting rid of that line that you made underneath. All right. So that one's green. I'm gonna throw some yellow in it just because I feel like it. I'm just gonna dot that yellow and I'm gonna let it kind of continue to do its thing while I go over to the other side. And I'm gonna get some more of this dark green that we just made. And I've decided to have some vegetation that's coming over this way. And it doesn't have to be symmetrical. You can make it however you would like. I'm trying not to be symmetrical, but I'm ending up a little symmetrical. So let's make this, I'm going to make this little bush come down maybe further. And you can see how when I do this, it kind of messes up that color that's underneath there. And that's okay with me because I want to make this like there's a bush here. And I'm trying to be sort of gentle with the tip of my brush so I don't tear up my paper. It can be a challenge sometimes. All right, so I'm just gonna come out here with this and find a point to stop and make myself stop. All right, get this good and watery. This wasn't very blendy over here. Let's get that blended in a little bit more. So I'm just kind of moving in a circular motion with the tip of this brush. And then, what should we do in here? What do we think? Maybe some brown? Can always make a greenish brown by taking this brown over here, rinsing my brush, and grabbing some of that green we used, and mixing it up with the brown. And we could even mix a little bit of that black, just to make like a soft brown color. All right, I instantly don't love this, so what are we gonna do? If you like it, you can keep it. I'm just gonna make it kind of melty. Get it like it's melting into the other things that are here, and we can come in and we can add some other things later. Maybe this is rock. Maybe it's not a tree. Maybe there's some rock there. All right, so this is developing nicely. We're kind of getting some vegetation in the background, and that's cool. All right, so then I'm gonna have some vegetation down here in front too. Like it's sort of, it's coming up and it's in front, but it's gonna be a little greener. So I'm gonna mix some green over here because I still want it to be foresty. And then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna kind of make some little shapes. These maybe are the things that are in the foreground that are in front of this waterfall. And they can be whatever colors you want them to. I'm going to add some yellow to this one. Keep in mind, we're just kind of brushing this in. We'll go in and we'll put some color on top of this after it dries a little to give it a little bit more dimension. And then let's see, I'll take some green over here and sort of make a little, it's kind of a bush. And again, I'm going to kind of rub my brush around under here to get rid of these lines. I don't like how this one's round and this one's pokey, so I'm going to make this one also is going to have some of that pokey texture to it. So that is what I am feeling for my vegetation right now. And again, I've made it very symmetrical, which I was trying to avoid, but that's what happens. Okay, so what should I add to this one? Maybe I'll add brown to this one. So you can kind of brush it on or whatever you'd like. Okay, so now let's do a little more fanning. Let's dry it off a little bit. And I'm going to try and dry like this area up at the top. Ah. All right, so that's getting a little bit drier. And I do think I need some more darkness here at the bottom where this area here I feel like should be darker, but I think I need to wait for this to dry. So that is what I will do. But we can start up here where it's dried a little bit, and we can go in and we can get some of our color that we use. So this is orange, and I'm going to bring it over here so I can water it down and maybe add some red to it. I'm going to make kind of a red orange. If you have the 16 colors, you can use this poppy orange here, or you can use the regular red. You just kind of make it how you want it. But I'm going to start putting in some just some leafy tree business here. Like, we're just gonna add some texture, and this isn't anything real exact. You can see I'm just like literally dabbing. Like, there's a pretty orange tree right here, and I'm just adding some texture. So then we can do that same thing on the other side. And you still want your paint to be pretty translucent. So I'm still gonna, sort of gonna just poke around and make some little leafy details. When we put wet paint over dry paint, we can see where those brush strokes have gone. Unlike here where it was wet on wet and it kind of blends in, now we're able to get a little more of this detail. This is still wet. All right, so I'm gonna go in and grab some yellow, water it down just like I've been doing, because this is a very sheer painting. All right, so I'm just gonna poke some little yellow leaves in here just to give it some interest. And it doesn't have to be real exact. Like, it doesn't have to look like a recognizable tree right now. We are literally just adding layers of interest, and we can do this however we want. So I'm gonna come down here and just add some little dots. And this paint is all still sort of wet down there. So now I'm going to take some yellow, and where I put this yellow before, I'm going to go put some more yellow, but it looks a little different this time because that paint is drier. And then I'll do the same thing over here, but this paint is wetter. So you can see how that changes things. All right. So then I think we can probably, let's fan a little more and get it nice and dry. And if you've got a hairdryer and you want to go over this, you can easily do that. But I am just going to dry it like this because I know some of you may not have a hairdryer. All right, there we go. I think we're getting a little better now. All right, so I'm going to come in with some of my green. I think I want it to be greener. I'm going to add even more green. And if you want your green to be kind of gray, you could go ahead and you can add some more of that blackish blue that we used. But I don't want that. I want super green. So I'm just going to come and kind of dot some of this in there. And you can see it just looks like nothing. And that's okay. Just let it look like nothing. And I'm going to come a little further out on this point. But it doesn't have to look like anything. It can be very abstract-y and weird. All right, so then I want this to be a little more dimensional too. So you can see we're just adding a few lines here and there. And here, I'm just going to add some more dots just to give it a little more dimension. And it doesn't matter if we run over where that yellow is. It'll still be fine. don't know if anybody else's is kind of starting to look like it might actually be an environment, but mine kind of is. I think I want some more color in here, so I think I'm going to maybe mix some of this blue and green and make it this middle color here. So I'm going to come in and put some darker spaces. And I'm going to have it be a little darker down here at the bottom. And maybe I'll bring some of that darker greenish color into here too. And I am just doing what I want with really paying no attention to this pattern. I'm just making it, kind of trying to make it feel like there's grass hanging out over this little waterfall here. This is where you can let your imagination really just go, like let it go places. So I'm thinking if this thing is in the foreground, it's going to be in front of all that. Alright, so we have like this one more place that's just brown, but I think I'm just going to allow that to be like rocks. Alright, so now it's time to really fan it dry. So if you have a hairdryer, now is the time to get it out. We are getting closer. So the next part of what we'll do is just kind of scratch in some of our dark places, because when we use watercolor we need to start with the light stuff. That was kind of a weird dark spot. We need to start with the lighter stuff and then work in the darker things. So I'm going to work in like maybe some tree branches. See if we can make this look like trees. Trees, vegetation, rocks. We can add in some